So in this video I'm going to do a second part VR response for the tag Show Your Covers. So this is a tag created by Rachel over at Second Thoughts About the Mission, where she just wanted people to share their favourite book covers. Now I already have done one of these videos which I'll link in the description box, but in that video I absolutely forgot, I can't believe I did this as a trained artist, to credit any of the cover art or the artists or the photographers, which I felt really remiss about. So at some point I am going to put that right, and as I talk about those books again I will talk about the artists. So in this video I'm going to put that right. So in that first video where I forgot to name all the artists, I didn't on purpose talk about any Victorian books because I wanted to do this video again just with Victorian books as part of Victober, but it's turned into quite a series of amazing rabbit holes to fall down trying to find artist name and researching them a little bit. So I'm also going to link this one. It's not only a Victober video, but it's also a video for Framed in September, a little bit later I know, but it just fits perfectly with books and art books and artists. So it's for Framed in September and it's Show Your Covers, the Victober edition. So I've got some beautiful books to share with you and some rabbit holes to open up for you as well, I hope. I just have to start off my sharing of these covers with covers that, yes, I know I've shared these before on the channel, but I would be remiss not to begin with these. So these are my Macmillan Press editions of Thomas Hardy novels. We've got the one poetry book that I found, the new Wessex selection of Thomas Hardy poetry. Look at that fantastic cottage there. So I can't find a photographer mentioned for this image on the front of this book, but it says the cover photograph is from the National Trust and it shows the cottage in Higher Bockhampton in Dorset, where Hardy was born, the subject of his earliest known poem called Domicilium. So this is actually the cottage where he was born. How fabulous is that? I love them because they are a little bit terrible, really. They're very kitsch, and for me, I love real artwork, I love paintings on covers, but I also really love like vintage covers and especially kitsch covers. And I think photography covers using real people in them, they really had a time and a place, I feel. And I think this collection of covers for Thomas Hardy books just really sums up that time and place of these covers. I love this Tess of the D'Urbervilles cover. I love the layout of that with all the blank space. I think that's so wonderful. I also love this Two on the Tower, probably more than the Woodlanders cover, which for me is, it's really musty and muted, a bit like the cover of the Trumpet Major. The Hand of Ethelberta is slightly different because it's got a cream spine and the photography on that just kind of looks different. Yeah, and it is different photography. I've checked the artists for all of these Thomas Hardy Macmillan books, and this is the only photography done by somebody called Bill Richmond. But my very, very favourite cover of these Macmillan editions is this one, the version of Far from the Madding Crowd. I think there's something so stunning about that woman, Bathsheba Everdeen, looking out of the window with the old latch on the window and all the reflections in the window. There's just something just so fabulous and appealing to me about this book cover. If I had to pick a favourite book cover ever, it would be this book. There's just something about it. I love the colour palette in there as well. So those are my Macmillan edition Thomas Hardy books, which I had to start with, even though I shared them before, simply because I love them so much. So the photography for these three books which I think you can see they're very similar in style, the photography. They're all by somebody called Humphrey Sutton. So Humphrey Sutton, I love your work. Now these final ones of these books, I mean, this one looks like a painting, that image, and I think a lot of these final photographs do look very painterly, and they are by a photographer called Bob Golden. Well, some of the books say Bob Golden, some of these covers say Barry Goldman, but I'm assuming that Barry and Bob might be the same person. So I do love Bob Golden's photography that looks like a painting. Right, then we're going to go to one of my key focus authors of the year that I've been reading for my Victorian literature studies, and that is Charles Dickens. And I'm going to share a book that I haven't got to yet. So Dombey and Son, I really love the cover in this. This is the Oxford World Classics edition. I love how limited the colour palette is on that cover. I love it so much. So I've searched for the artist of this front cover piece, and I've read on the back that it's actually from a stained glass window in the English School 19th century at Dickens House Museum. So this isn't an illustration or a painting, this is stained glass. And now that I've read that, you can see it, can't you, that it is glass. But the Oxford World Classics aren't actually my favourite classics edition. I really love this old penguin edition, the old-fashioned penguin, and you can see I've got 2 copies of this book. I bought this one, and then I found this one a few weeks later in a charity shop. I much prefer the font, I much prefer how buttery and floppy these ones are. I love the spines on these with the little miniature of the picture. My all-time favourite classics edition are these old penguin classics. But I also love the cover. When I found this, I thought, shall I get rid of this one? Because it's chunky and it takes up a lot of space. But to be honest, I haven't been able to bring myself to get rid of this version just because I love the cover art so much. And this one, I think this cover art is just so gorgeous. It's the most wonderful painting. I love it. So this painting is by William Moore Egley, and it was reproduced by permission of the Victorian Albert Museum. So this is down in the V&A in London, and it really is a stunning piece, and not an artist that I've heard of either before. So probably 2 of my favourite Dickens covers just happen to be of the same book. However, I would be really remiss not to mention the first Charles Dickens book I ever read, all the way back in January. David Copperfield. Now I found this is a vintage edition of a Charles Dickens book. I found 3 of these vintage editions all at the same time. At the end of last year, I walked into a charity shop, 3 books for £2. I found this, and I found Tale of Two Cities, and I found the Pickwick Papers, all in what looked like untouched condition, all in vintage editions. So it was finding those 3 books that made me think, well, I'll start with Charles Dickens then. This was the first of those books that I read. And having read the book now, it's the image on the front. It's the empty nests that are seen in the back garden of the house where David Copperfield opens the book, where he lives with his mom. And I think there's a lot of symbology in those empty nests. It's called the rookery, but there's no birds in the nest. That idea of being kicked out of home not being quite what it should be. Oh my goodness, there's so much symbolism here. After I'd read the book and could kind of feel the impact of what this image means, I love the cover so much more. I actually cried when I kind of put 2 and 2 together with the front cover of this, and then I kind of sat with the thought of the idea of nests and what nests should mean and what David Copperfield didn't have at the start of the book, or what he did have and got taken away from him. And I sat for a long time with the symbology of this cover and loved it. So a really great and moody and really atmospheric photograph here that sums up some of the emotions of the book. It says that it's a cover photograph by Simon Larbalistia. So great image there. So I wonder how I feel about these two covers when I read Dombey and Son, which I can't wait to do. This is one that I've got planned for next year. I think reading a book can change your opinion of a book cover. I know the vintage editions do that really well. They pick something in the story and depict it. They've done that really well. I've liked the covers on the vintage editions for that reason. So those are my Charles Dickens covers that I love. So as part of my Victorian reading this year, I also wanted to explore the work of Wilkie Collins. Now I'm going to show you the two editions that I read from. Don't particularly like that version of The Woman in White at all, to be honest. And I don't quite know what's happened with this. That's literally happened on the bookcase. So not the best version, but it does have all my annotation in and my tab in, so that kind of makes me feel like I never want to get rid of it. Luckily I found this second-hand version of The Moonstone in that Penguin Classics edition, and I do actually really like the cover of that. I think one of the biggest things and takeaways for me of The Moonstone was that idea of setting and the horror of quicksands around the house and the paths in the story. It just really added into the gothic feel of The Moonstone. I thought the setting was really important for me, so I read from those two. I like this book cover way more than that one. So this front cover actually shows a detail of a painting called The Honeymoon by Alfred Joseph Woolmer, who I've never heard of before, whereas this one is actually digital artwork. It was designed by Nicola Trailer Barbrook, but the digital artwork was done by a design house company. So it just goes to show like the different types of art that you can find on covers. However, I did in a charity shop find on the same day these two books again, and it shows you I will definitely buy a book for its cover. Even though I already had these two books, I just couldn't resist. Again, you've got that kitschness of the photograph with a person on. So this is now an exciting BBC One serial. So this is obviously taken from a still from the TV series. I'm all for a film or TV cover. Yeah, and the back cover does say that these are taken from the BBC One classical serial in colour, showing Vivian Heilbronn as Rachel Verinda. It says that the photographs were taken by Douglas Player. Like I said, I love kitsch books, but look at this one, an Everyman paperback. I don't even know what that is. So this is really old. I loved this. I just loved that. There was no way I could leave this one in the shop, and next time I read this, I think this needs to be the copy that I read from. And it says in the front that it is printed by J.M. Dent and Sons Limited in Aldine House, Bedford Street, London. Last printed 1963. So we've got a vintage copy there, and I love both of those. So this slightly more kitsch book, the cover design is by an artist called George McKee, who studied at Dundee. He was a Scottish artist. I had a little look to see if I could find some of his work, and I found these rather lovely sort of harbour and boat paintings online. Aren't they really gorgeous, I think? But also sticking with Wilkie Collins, two for the future, I found this gorgeous copy of The Legacy of Cain in a Pocket Classics edition. I do love that cover. I love the image on it. I think that's fabulous. I found that while I was waiting for my daughter to get her hair cut, so I went for a little walk around some charity shops and that was there. So this gorgeous painting is a detail from a painting called Mother and Child by Edward Robert Hughes, who was alive between 1851 and 1917. So really gorgeous image. And then I also love this Penguin Classics edition of Armadale. I haven't read this one yet either. This is planned for next year. I just love the colours in this painting on the front. It's got a real gothic feel to it. So this again is a detail of a painting called Eve of St Agnes, and it's painted by Sir John Everett Millais, and it's actually in the Royal Collection of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So I love this painting so much. Those are two Wilkie Collins covers that just really stand out for me as well. So that is quite a little selection there of Wilkie Collins covers that I love. Okay, the next book, kind of, does it count as Victorian? It doesn't really, because it isn't from Great Britain. The author, Nathaniel Hawthorne, isn't British, but it's in the time frame of the Victorian era. So we've got the Scarlet Letter. I've picked this out as a cover that I love, just because look at that image. That image is an absolute delight. It's just the painting, I think, is stunning. And this is a painting called Mother and Child. It's a painting from 1900 by Charles William Bartlett, who was alive between 1860 and 1930. So although it doesn't quite fit Victorian, it's getting a place anyway. I don't think anybody minds. I also realised in the last Show Me Your Covers video that I did that I do love a really striking photograph on the front cover. I mean, you've seen it with the kitsch photos, but this isn't so much kitsch, it's just really very striking. So this is Aurora Lee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and I do really love that cover. And it is a photograph of somebody called Cleo de Moronde from 1873 to 1966. She was a French dancer and actress, and the photograph was taken by Rootlinger. I have a beautiful cover for Elizabeth Gaskell's Ruth, which I've got this planned to read in December. A snowy cover. I think that will work really well in December, but I do love that painting. Again, I just think that's a really pretty painting, and it is a detail from a painting called The Lost Path by an artist called Frederick Walker, who was alive between 1840 and 1875, and it's in the Mackin's collection. And one that I'm reading in Victober, this copy of Charlotte Bronte's The Professor, it also comes with the fragment that Charlotte Bronte wrote of her unfinished novel Emma. Both of these are covering prompts. This is for Hannah's prompt of a book that touches on education. The fragment of Emma I'm going to read as something that's linked to Jane Austen, because when I bought this book I thought it was Jane Austen's Emma at the back of the book, and I thought, oh, that's unusual, and then realised no, it isn't that at all. It's actually Charlotte Bronte's unfinished novel. But I love this. I love this copy. Again, it's in Everyman's Library, and I love that kitsch painting on the front. Gosh, and now I feel slightly mortified that I used the word kitsch to describe it, because zooming in you can see the detail of it, and then I looked on the back of the book and it says it's a cover painting that shows a detail from the painting Femme au Jardin by Monet. I've just called Monet kitsch. I feel ashamed, guys, but it just goes to show that art in different contexts can take on a different feel. The old-fashionedness of it made it feel kitsch to me, whereas on a canvas on a gallery wall I wouldn't be using that word, so do forgive me for that. I have another Penguin classic here. It's another Thomas Hardy novel, but this time in this edition. Again, that limited colour palette, a beautiful photograph. I love that image. I think that's a really stunning image. One of my favourite Hardy covers. So this is a detail from a photograph called Clementina kneeling against the window frame at 5 Prince's Garden. It's an 1852 photograph by Lady Clementina Hawarden, so it's obviously a self-portrait. When I googled this photographer, I found some other amazing self-portraiture photographs. So I think doing this and getting interested in your book covers can open up so many fantastic art rabbit holes to discover. I am really keen now to find out more about that artist and her work and life. And again, another stunning image. This is a book that's planned on my TBR for next year. George Gissing, The Odd Women. Isn't that a strange cover? It's got sort of shining vibes about it. It just makes me feel intrigued to read the books. And when you're looking close, it really is an incredible painting. It's actually a detail from a painting called The Two Sisters, and it's by another artist I've not heard of, by Jerndorf August Andreas. Both of those, I think, are striking and favourite covers. And then I have some favourites from childhood. So when I was a lot younger, I read Little Women and Good Wives and just loved the story so much. It's been a long time since I've read it, a long time since I've owned the book. So when I went into a charity shop and found this version, which has Little Women and Good Wives all in the same book, in a Wordsworth Classic edition, and just saw how kitsch again the cover is. I think some of those heads look like they're photoshopped in. I just could not resist. So I do love that. It's another one of those kitsch ones that kind of makes me smile. So there always seems to be a lot more people listed for these kind of more digital artwork covers, because there's a cover designer, Robert Matthias, but the cover illustration is by somebody called Becky Surridge. But then recently in my closest charity shop, in the children's section, and for their children's books, it's 4 for £1. So I only paid 25 pence for each of these. I found another copy of Little Women. Look at that. And then I also found a copy of Jo's Boys as well. Oh my gosh, look at those two covers. So this is just incredible. Look, it's got these incredible end papers as well. I love that. Look at the colour of the spine as well. I gasped when I saw it. I truly gasped. I just thought it was the most gorgeous copy of Little Women for 25 pence, guys. And then although this is a little bit ripped, I can forgive it anything, because look at it, it's just wonderful. And here inside, I love it when I find things inside books. Dear Mr. Dean, my class has been naughty today. Can you keep my class in at playtime? Can you talk to them? From Mrs. King. How fantastic is that? So yeah, I love it. So that's staying in there as a little found treasure. Again, look, the book is just a real old vintage copy, but I love this so much. And then finally, another secondhand book that I actually tracked down online. And if you've watched my channel for half a minute, you'll know that I'm very used to getting books 3 for £1 or 4 for £1 in the superb charity shops I've got within walking distance of my house. So it's very rare that I spend more than £5 for a book. Very rare if I spend more than £10 for a book. This book I did actually spend about £15 on, which is almost unheard of for me. Why? Because looking and watching back on old Victober videos. I think it was Kate Howe that recommended this book. I love Kate's channel. She recommended this book and I went in search of it and I found it, and I've actually, guys, bought this as a Christmas present to myself. This is Charles Reade's The Cloister and the Hearth, and this edition I think is so beautiful. Look at all of this embossing, it's just gorgeous. And inside it you've got writing inside books. I love to find writing. You've got pages like this with colour plates in it. Isn't this just so stunning? There are more colour plates inside as you open it up. There's also illustrations, like ink illustrations throughout, as well as the colour plates in here. It is just an absolute treat. There is another colour plate inside, so it is a bit delicate. I am going to read it very carefully, but for my final book to share with you today, I just wanted to show you this beautiful version of The Cloister and the Hearth. And look at this for some lovely artist credit. There on the spine it says illustrated by Gordon Brown on that beautiful spine, which is great to see, isn't it? And if you open the book at the beginning of the book, look, not only are there things like this in here, 1969, 1 year off my birthday. I was born in 1968, and again, look at that, there's notes in there. But for the artist, there is a list of illustrations, so I'm assuming that all of these illustrations are by the same artist, because there is only that one name on the spine. So you've got colour drawings and you've got pen and ink drawings, and they're all listed in the list of illustrations. And you can see, look, we've got drawings for chapter headings as well. So just a really gorgeous edition, all illustrated by Gordon Brown. I just really do love that. So that's it, guys, all of my favourite Victorian covers, or a snippet of my favourite Victorian covers, I should say. I'll leave all of Rachel's links if you wanted to do this VR as a response to her. She's a fabulous channel. I love Rachel so much, so go and say hi if you haven't found her yet. And happy Victober, everybody. I hope everybody is enjoying it as much as I am. So thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.